There's a lot of men that feel that every single weekend they have to go out and party. They have to go out and, impress. Sometimes it's not even friends, it's just impress someone that really, really wants you to do something that isn't in the best interest of you. They want you to do it just because it fills their own void. And in that moment, you might not necessarily need that or want that. You might necessarily need a chilled weekend, a weekend where you can really catch up with yourself.
Whenever we face conflict, we like to bury our heads in the sand, even for a second. You need to get through to the other side of this, because on the other side of this, you are stronger. So get to the other side and take control of your life. Saving your life is taking control of your life. Mm-hmm. Whilst everything is uncontrollable, there's one thing you can control, which is saving your own life.
Sink or swim kind of thing.
Sink or swim.
If I don't go to the gym for more than 2 weeks, call me crazy, but for me, I start to feel it. I start to feel the aches in my... That might be age though, I'm not gonna lie. That might be the fact that I'm getting older.
I think it is.
Who knows? But
we'll ignore the grey hairs coming through.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. I don't even know why you mentioned it, my bro, but you're f***ed. Welcome back, everyone, to Teddy Talks. I am excited to have you here. My name is Teddy Soares. I'm joined by my brother, Sidney Soares. Give him a round of applause.
On this fine, bleak evening. It's very dark here in the UK.
No, don't start like that.
But it's fine. I've come here with happy spirits.
Yes.
And, we're back to shoot another episode of Teddy Talks. And I'm really excited about today's episode because we're going to go deep, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I'm even more so excited because I've got probably one of my most favored quotations from Rocky Balboa, which, am I okay to kick off our quotation?
Of course.
Session, fantastic. It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. I feel like I should have done it the Rocky Balboa way. I kind of missed a trick there, innit?
Are you good at putting on the Rocky Balboa accent?
Nah, I couldn't even do an Italian.
It would have been a major fail. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. That would have even butchered it.
But it's a powerful, powerful quote. Why do you like that one? Why did you choose it?
Because life is all about ups, downs, failures. I feel like even from an early age, we went through so many things that we would have wanted, and mummy either says yes or no, and you try and go to daddy and ask for the same question even though mummy would have said no. And I feel like you could either cry in the corner, you could either just decide that you don't want to get up again and move forward, or you can learn from certain lessons.
So that was the first lesson, being told no from mommy and daddy. And
yeah, quickly.
I need to move forward somehow.
Yeah. Exactly. And even when you go through school, you go through your work, life hits you in different ways where you're not always gonna have the answer you want. And it's how you react. It's how you either, we both came from a sales background. We had a lot of rejection in our I mean, you're still relatively in sales, but specifically for me, I went through a lot of rejection, 80, 90 calls a day I was making every single day on the phone in the finance industry. And not everybody's going to say yes. Not everybody's going to be nice to you. And even the ones that you end up closing that wasn't quite nice to you in the beginning, again, it's about whether or not you're willing to make that phone call again because you heard something within that phone call that was it was the bite from that customer, which then makes you think, actually, I need to call him in a week's time. Even though it wasn't a good time the first time I called him and he kind of brushed me off the phone, I feel like he may appreciate my phone call the second time, the third time, the fourth time. And it's being able to have that courage to, take the criticism, get hit, and
keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. What about you? Is that something that you've experienced? Or better question, when have you experienced, I won't say getting hit and felt like you need to keep moving forward, but like any form of rejection, any form of failure, challenge that you thought, actually, it's going to be in my best interest if I get back up and, for want of a better phrase, pat in the day?
Yeah, there's been many moments. You've just spoken to the fact that we've got a background in sales, and you put your neck on the line every day. Everyone sees your numbers on the board, and if you don't deliver, if you're not as good as your last month, then you're probably going to get fired. It's cutthroat. But just to take it down a notch, I'd speak to something else where you do get hit as a man. When you put yourself forward towards the woman that you're interested in,
in a club or a bar or whatever,
you can get rejected.
Do you remember the first time you walked up to someone and that very first time? I won't point out an age, but do you remember what that was like?
No.
Don't lie. You said no.
Yeah, and maybe it's because I'm desensitized to it now, but I honestly can't remember.
Why is that? Because you didn't get rejected, or are you trying to say that it just didn't happen? I can tell you the real answer.
No,
I think I was there.
I've been rejected many times, but the times I've been successful, it's worth celebrating.
Yeah. Of course.
I think I'll probably tell you a story about one time I wasn't rejected, but I felt rejected, and
so I'll tell you if you were rejected or not.
Yeah. We were in Cape Verde, and I think we were about 13 years old, and I was going through a holiday romance with a 17-year-old at the time. I don't know how I managed that.
How old were you?
13.
Yeah,
13.
What a guy.
What a guy. I don't know how he did that. But anyway, here's the fool. So I remember one time walking past, my grandma's neighborhood is where Georgia used to live. She's probably married off to someone now. And I remember walking past my grandma's place, and there was this alleyway on the left-hand side, which, by chance I looked into that alleyway and I saw Georgia lips in another guy.
I was trying so hard not to laugh as well, because it's not funny.
But I was like, I felt rejected.
So wait, you're saying you weren't rejected? That wasn't an indication that you were rejected?
That was an indication I was rejected.
Yeah, okay.
That was the first time I felt really, really rejected.
Painful.
It was very, very painful. And that's when the villain arc started.
I was gonna say, jokes aside, does that then paint a picture for? Because one of the previous episodes, obviously, you mentioned that obviously you made mistakes in your early days of your relationship side of things. Do you feel like, from a mental point of view, you held on to that moment when you saw Georgia kissing this guy? Do you feel like mentally that definitely, well, not definitely, but may have impacted certain aspects of Sidney's relationships moving forward from that point onward?
I think it was just a really humbling experience. It just taught me a lot about being in a relationship with someone who has way more experience than you. Now, I was naive at the time. Come on. Probably a virgin. Georgia.
Well, you were probably a virgin.
You
were definitely a virgin at 13, bro. Come on, bro. I was thinking, what are you talking about? You are 100 million percent a virgin.
Listen. I'm trying to make myself feel better about my situation here. But look, as I'm saying, I'm not saying I was taken advantage of.
No,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that it made me realize that, people enter relationships for different reasons. And, Georgia's, I'm not saying it was her reason, it was, I can walk all over this guy.
I mean, he's only 13.
He's only 13, he can't speak Portuguese and Creole as well as I can. So, I can always twist his arm in certain situations. And actually, this all smokes and mirrors here. What you're seeing is not what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And even in sales, when people try to confuse you with big words and, they talk really fast, sometimes they are creating smokes and mirrors behind really showing you that they understand your problem. And
I want to also add to that as well, because from not just sales, but obviously from the background that we've had, sales, even where I'm at now, from working with certain brands and maybe not even working with specific brands, you have moments where you thought the deal's going to go across the line because you've had either verbal confirmation or you've just had some level of commitment, and then at the last minute something happens, the deal doesn't go through, that's no longer in the projected revenue or the projected pipeline that you may have had at the time. So bouncing back from that as well can be very difficult, because a lot of people will be analyzing how they're going to spend their money once they get it. And at that point, when you get told at the 11th hour, could be quarter end as well,
it's a lot of pressure.
It's hard to bounce back. Imagine if you have kids as well.
Yeah,
you have a family.
You've got a family to feed.
Mentally, it's probably like, it's. I mean, I wouldn't say probably. I definitely remember when I was in COVID as well. It was a lot of pressure to not only fend for myself, make sure I'm getting the commission and make sure I'm earning what I'm earning, but also for the business. Because at the end of the day, if you're not putting in the work for the business, you could potentially face being sacked, disciplinaries, actionable steps could end up, going your way. So it has a huge mental implication on whether or not, as the quote goes, you want to bounce back or go the other way and spiral down the other way, really.
Yeah. We need to keep moving forward. And I think facing rejection is definitely a big thing. And I learned the hard way, through many experiences, not just through Georgia's, but through sales and just through life. But I think it's a great segue to talk about, some of the challenges men experience on a day-to-day basis that affects their mental health. Our late cousin, who was a young man with so much potential, who, unfortunately took his own life. But there are a lot of men committing suicide, more so than women. So,
is that a fact? Did you get that from a?
Yeah, this is
study?
some of the research. Some of the research that I uncovered when I was looking into this, and I wanted to unpack that a little bit with you and just ask you a few questions. And we'll keep this an open forum. The audience can perhaps maybe educate us about some of the things that we don't know. What do you think are some of the reasons that men find it hard to deal with challenges and mental health challenges, not challenges in general, but mental health challenges? And okay, what does mental health mean? Being in your own head and having negative self-talk and everything that comes with that, depression, anxiety, anger, frustration, all of the things that stop you from propelling yourself forward in a positive way. Why do you think men struggle with that more than women do? Not to say women aren't struggling with it at all, but why do you think men are?
It's interesting because if I was to talk on my own personal experiences where I've been emotional or vulnerable or felt as though there wasn't really a get out, one of the biggest reasons is, he might be seeking attention, or, this could be, how could he be so emotional right now? He's on top of the world, he's got everything going for him. Like outside noise kind of dismissing or disregarding your emotions is one of the things that I think is definitely it's definitely an issue, because personally, why would you even want to show your emotion if people are going to call you out and say that, your emotions aren't real? That's one thing. And I also think that there's just general pressures that men put on themselves, not from outside sources. We might think from an ego point of view or from a pride point of view, we have to operate in this way because it looks better from an outside point of view. And it's not even thinking inward. It's not like, actually, does this resonate with me? There's instances where I remember when I was working in the finance industry, and my director used to say to me, sometimes the deal might not be right for us as much as it's not right for the customer. And what that meant to me was, there's instances where, yes, the commission would be fantastic, it would be great, but is that business going to do more damage to our business than in the short term we get fantastic earnings and fantastic commission? And I always took that into life as well. There's some things around you that, yes, you could taste this and you can get a flavor of that, and from a man's pride and from a man's ego point of view, you can do certain things just because, but actually it doesn't resonate with your core values. It doesn't resonate with your core version of who Sidney or Teddy is as a person. But because someone said to you, oh, you can't do that, even though you could, you go and try and prove that person wrong just for the sake of it. I definitely think that relates more so towards a lot of men that feel that every single weekend they have to go out and party. They have to go out and, impress. Sometimes it's not even friends. It's just impress someone that really, really wants you to do something that isn't in the best interest of you, but yet, they want you to do it just because it fills their own void. And in that moment, you might not necessarily need that or want that. You might necessarily need a chilled weekend, a weekend where you can really catch up with yourself. You could have had a busy Monday to Friday, and actually the best thing for you is to rest. The best thing for you is to look inwards. The best thing is for self-care. There's a lot of things I do as a quote-unquote man that wouldn't necessarily be looked at from most men as, oh, this is a masculine thing to do.
All right, so you've taken it there. So let's talk about toxic masculinity a little bit and how that contributes to...
Is that what we're calling it? Toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's a coin term, not by myself.
How would you define that? for those people that don't really know what I can't even say it. Toxic masculinity is. How would you define that?
I'll define it as masculinity that is taken to the extreme. So, I'm a man, so I can never cry. I'm a man, so I can never show my emotions in front of my loved ones.
Or even to someone that you don't know, which sometimes is useful and helpful.
So from your perspective, you mentioned that there are some of the things that you do yourself which may not be accepted by the majority of males because it may not always be the most masculine thing to do. But could you talk us through why you do those things and the impact it has on you and your state of mind and your well-being?
Yeah,
and why
of
you
course.
feel free to express yourself as you do. People are afraid to do that.
Yeah, one of the things that stick out, which actually, for the life of me, I've actually stopped putting it on social media, which I'm gonna start doing again, is my self-care Sundays. I used to do a lot of self-care Sundays, or try to do a lot of self-care Sundays, I should say. But most of my audience, most of my people who have been following me for a minute now will know that self-care is something that is part of Teddy Soares' makeup. And for me, it's not just trying to show other men and trying to show, the younger generation that self-care is important. It's also because of what it does for me mentally. Mentally, it gets me prepared for the week ahead. Mentally, it allows me to have a sense of relaxation. When I even do my routine in the morning, it prepares me for the day. It prepares me to go out into the environment and attack my day. So if I hadn't done most of the routines I do, if I don't do a lot of the routines I do, I'll be blunt, like it makes me feel shit. Like I feel as though something out of my day is missing, especially when I don't go to the gym. If I don't go to the gym for more than 2 weeks, call me crazy, but for me, I start to feel it. I start to feel the aches in my... That might be age, though. I'm not gonna lie. That might be the fact that I'm getting older.
I think it is.
Who knows? But
we'll ignore the grey hairs coming through.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. I don't even know why you mentioned it, my bro. But you're f***ed. 2 weeks, even from when we were 16, growing up, when we started going to the gym. When you missed the gym for 2 weeks, and within those 2 weeks, you're eating shit, you're not looking after yourself, because mommy always used to cook us relatively balanced diets. We'll have rice, chicken, veg every single time on the plate. That would be usually the key components of our dinner or lunch. So if we didn't have that when we were growing up, especially when we transitioned to getting our paychecks from 17 to 18 and we start ordering the takeaway, we start ordering the odd McDonald's, ordering the odd KFC and stuff, you would feel it. Like I would genuinely feel it. I'd feel it in my skin. I'd feel it in my stomach. I'd feel bloated. I'd feel heavy. I'd feel as though this sounds like an exaggeration, but like my bones would feel a bit like achy. I'd almost feel borderline ill.
You're nowhere near the 100% version of yourself that can face adversity and challenges on a day-to-day basis.
For as long as I can remember, I've drank 2 liters every single day for at least until I was maybe 20.
That's
that's a good 8. That's a good 8 years for a minimum. That one day I don't have that 2 liters, I genuinely feel it. I'm looking at this is going to sound so un-PC, but when you're urinating down the toilet, I'm looking at it and I'm like, rah, I need to drink more water because by 1 o'clock, my piss is usually clear, minimum 12. Like, it's looking like water is basically coming out of you, right? So like, even little things like that, the hydration, my entire body feeling like it's been detoxed and
it's
feeling
all,
like
it's all a feedback loop. You're seeing yourself get better. When you see yourself declining, it makes you feel shit and, becomes a cycle. It could be a positive one or a negative one. One thing you approach this question from a physical aspect and how it makes you feel. You didn't touch on how it makes you look, because that's not what you're focused on. How it makes you feel, the physical aspects. What I also want to touch on is, the mental aspects, because, as a man, we can take a lot of gems from what women do. Women have a very strong support network, which means that they are able to communicate their feelings to one another very well. You were saying all of these things that you felt, but you wouldn't be saying these things to me. And these are all these things that you're saying to yourself in your mind.
No.
But one thing that I also found interesting is that when you go to the gym, you're giving yourself space to also be alone, to think about some of the things that you go through. And we've talked about this before, where sometimes when you don't have time to zoom out and think about your problems, that's when you can just be on autopilot, running in a direction that is probably not good for you. And, one aspect of men suffering in silence is that they're not speaking to anyone. So loneliness is one thing. And I'm also thinking about, the men who are out there who don't have our interests in terms of going to the gym and being interested in sport, but are interested in some of the other things that we do and we've spent a lot of time doing as well, which is playing games and, consuming a lot of content on social media and trying to figure out where they want to go in life, but feel like everything that they look at makes them feel even worse about where they are in life. So from a loneliness point of view, a man who's lonely, a man who has no one to speak to, what sort of questions would you be asking yourself when you were taking time to do your self-care routines, go to the gym, focus on Teddy? What are some of those questions that perhaps some of the guys, also maybe perhaps even girls, can take away from this too, that they can ask themselves, where when they're struggling to speak to anyone whilst they're going through this rough patch, some of the things that they can reflect on that can help them move to the next level?
I think it's tough to categorize it into one thing, but again, I can only go off my own personal examples. And my own personal examples, even when, let's say, I've been injured, for example's sake, I've had a wrist injury or an ankle injury so that puts me off going to the gym for at least a week, 2 weeks. Let's say 2 weeks to be realistic, because for 2 weeks, I'd definitely give myself that kind of recovery time. There's other vices, and those vices for me is closely linked to the things that you enjoy, your interest. If I was completely isolated and if I didn't have a family and I didn't have friends that I would, I'm trying to picture my life right now, which is speaking to you, Mommy, Carlos, Charlene, like my family. I didn't have my family and I didn't have my friends. What would I do in that scenario? Is that what you were asking me?
Mm-hmm.
It would be my interest. And that can be very, very dangerous, because especially when I was in Manchester, before COVID hit, I was very obsessed with work. From a 9 to 5 period, it was, well, not even 9 to 5, but slightly earlier. It was go to the gym, 6 o'clock in the morning, get to the office at around about 8. So that's pretty much before anyone's even come into the office. There's only one person, Steph, who would be there in and around that time period as well. Sometimes she beat me to the punch. And we'd both be in there. We'd both have our breakfast already. We'd both have our tea and coffee. And by the time everyone else gets in, we're having our second one. So like it was very much an obsession, that period. And some people might say, oh, you have to have a work-life balance. And if I'm real, I didn't have a work-life balance. It was, everyone else was on a Friday going for work drinks and I wasn't going for work drinks. I'd go back home and I'd either stick on the PlayStation, start literally blitzing the PlayStation online, or I'd be watching anime, or I'd be binging on, you know, a Netflix series or something. So like for me, I would literally go into hermit mode and I would do all the things that would be deemed as good for my health, which is the gym. I'd be eating well because I love my food. You know, I love my food. So as long as I've got a good plate in front of me, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm good. And when I say good plate, it's just filling. As long as it's made my stomach almost feel like it's about to pop, I'm good. And minus calling you guys in the night, minus calling mommy and calling my friends and, you know, mingling, it would literally just be looking after the things that make me happy, the things that generally make me feel like I'm enriching myself. Even reading, I'm listening to audibles, I'm listening to the books that I really, really want to read. I'm listening to those in my spare time if I haven't got anything else to do. So like it's finding your vices, and looking inward is very much how I have always been able to, for want of a better phrase, I've just always been able to find some sort of happiness if everyone else around me was too busy to either communicate or... One thing I'll also say is work also was an obsession for me because I was also open with my manager. So I remember at the time I was going through relationship stresses, I was going through financial stresses, and I was openly talking to my manager as if she was a therapist. She's not my therapist. She doesn't have to listen to me, but it was a work environment that, I don't know, it was enabling. Like whenever we were speaking to each other, her name's Sinead Higging, big shout out to Sinead. She always managed to bring me from literally 100 all the way back down to 0 and be ready for that day. And she could see that I was going through some sort of stresses. Every January, every period that, every January, which is Daddy's birthday, every period of when Daddy passes away, every fatherhood period, all those kind of fatherhood related periods surrounding obviously our grief, I always felt really low. My energy was always low. So for the first time, she actually suggested, take time off. Take 3 days off, take a day off or whatever. And again, having that person there as well, being able to open up and actually say, look, this is the issue in a workplace, then them providing a solution. Obviously, not many workplaces may even do that, but I would like to think if you're doing all the right things in your workplace, these things would potentially be available to you. If I hadn't opened up when I did, I wouldn't have had someone as good as Sinead to turn around and actually give me a solution. And it's always helped. So even now, moving forward, during the January period, during the period of Father's Day, and during the period of Daddy passing away, I always try and take some sort of break around that period.
Sinead's a nice lady.
Yeah, but I hope that answered your question.
It did answer my question. Thank you. I was also curious to hear your thoughts on, the role a father has in a man's life, and how being without a father can be a huge contributing factor as to why a man may be suffering. You know, I'm thinking about men who grow up with just a mum. You know, their father abandoned them at a young age, or perhaps, you know, their father passed away because of illness or for X, Y, Z reasons. A divorce happens, and, you know, the mum takes custody and you never see the dad again, or maybe the dad goes to jail. You know, there's loads of reasons. There's
fatherhood presence.
There's no father present in your life. How could that potentially impact a young man?
I would want to know from an NLP point of view. So I want to kind of flip the question back on you, especially because I've been talking so much. From your point of view, how do you feel like that would have impacted the youths today growing up, and even adding in social media as well, because we now have rappers, artists, you know, we have figures on social media that, especially from a lot of the children out there that are looking at these people as their idols. How would you answer your own question effectively?
I think there's multiple reasons why, you know, a man feels lost when he grows up without a father figure. But first and foremost, shout out to all the women out there who are raising, you know, young men by themselves and young women by themselves. You're doing an incredible job, and I know that firsthand because, you know, my mum did it, and, you know, she had the support of my grandma and
my mum, you know, like she's not my mum as well.
You know,
I have no respect.
You know, we have huh?
Our mum.
yeah, our mum, of course. I'm not being possessive. I'm just
I'm being possessive.
Just saying, yeah. But yeah, there's loads of reasons. You know, from an NLP perspective, you know, people develop the mental health issues first because it festers from negative emotions, right? You know, it's either fear, it's either anger, it's either frustration, it's either guilt, it's either shame, and, you know, that links in with the negative thought patterns you may have. And when you don't break those patterns, they show up in certain behaviors, you know, and then people start asking questions like, why is this person moving mad? But they're not. But they just haven't dealt with a particular issue that they're suffering with in silence. And maybe they don't know how to talk about it. And maybe they don't want to because the truth hurts too much.
You're not ready yet.
You're not ready. And, you know, there's that. And then there's the other thing of, you know, a man just wanting to know what it's like to shave his beard with the right machine. You know, I want to speak to a guy who's done that too, you know, rather than discover it for myself. You know, I can only speak to one of my experiences personally is when I was growing up and playing Sunday football, and one day my dad's there watching me and, you know, watching me about to score a goal, and the next minute he's not there. And, you know, that how does that feel when you see other dads on the sideline, you know, rooting for their kids, and you can hear your dad, but he's not there. He's in your thoughts, right? And I'm very, very lucky, very fortunate to have grown up with a strong support network, which allows me to process some of these things that happen to me. Even though we don't speak directly, you know, I can lean on you and, mommy and Carlos and Charlene if I do feel low. I'm very grateful, I'm very lucky, and I'm very thankful for that. So there's that aspect. There's one, a man can be suffering from, negative emotions in silence, to, that experience of, okay, I did have him in my life one time and I don't now, and having that void that hurts. I don't know how to fill that void. I don't know how to process that void. I haven't moved on from that void. That's also one angle. I think the other is, I guess it's more of a follow-up to what I was saying before. General life experiences. All right, can I ask my dad, tell me what it was like when you were figuring out what makes up the right partner? How did you know that mummy was the one that you could raise a family with? Could you advise me on any of the girls that I've been with? Did I
even
miss
the
it?
virginity question?
Even the virginity question.
Virginity question. We're not necessarily going to be like, yo, mommy, I'm feeling it now. Today is the day. Like, we're not going to do that with mommy.
No.
Whereas with Charlene, I feel like Charlene and mommy being of the same gender. Obviously, Charlene's our little sister, just for those people that are like, what they're talking about. Charlene and mommy have that. Charlene is never going to ask me any kind of questions about her period cycle or menstrual cycle. I don't know what it's called. Is it period cycle or menstrual cycle? What's it?
You need to learn more about women. That's what you need to do.
I need to learn more about women, clearly. But this is why she's never going to ask me about it. She's always going to ask mommy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now she knows for sure.
Exactly. So, so things like that is always going to be something that we missed out on. But yeah, big shout out to mommy and even to grandma, because I never ever felt as though we really missed out on those conversations. But more so on the basis that even when we were younger, mommy always used to say that we have to respect women. We always need to treat women in a certain way. We always need to, make sure that whatever we're doing in life, even says it now today, like we appreciate that, this has to be handled delicately, or we need to handle it in a certain way, or really giving us advice about our relationships. And I just remember when we were younger, that wasn't the same thing. But yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off there, but I just thought it was worth definitely giving mommy her flowers in regards to that.
No, yeah, definitely. We have lots of time for mommy, and we can do another episode on that if we wanted to.
You can do a whole season.
A whole season. Yeah. And a whole podcast, mommy, if you want it as well, we could do that too.
Do you know what I wanted to ask you just before we close off? And you may be able to answer this, you might not. How would you briefly say to those people out there that are feeling lonely, how would you advise people on how they combat loneliness?
There was a quote I stumbled across recently that I really like, and when I was doing research about why people who are depressed or have high levels of anxiety are likely to commit suicide, and I was hearing stories from people who have been depressed and have had suicidal thoughts, and they've talked about being overwhelmed and not being able to feel like they are in control of anything. It made me think about, okay, what are some of the thought patterns you can focus on when you're hearing this noise in your mind I'm not an expert. I don't know. And only one who can go through it themselves can use these tools and tell you if it works or not. I came across this quote that I really liked, is that the only way out is through. And
wow, that's powerful. Say that again.
The only way out is through.
The only way out is through.
The only way out is through.
Very powerful.
And we all tend to, this is a human nature thing. Whenever we face conflict, we like to bury our heads in the sand, even for a second. Even those of us who like to be in the heat of battle, there is a moment where you're like, give me 1 second to prepare for this. And it's like, no. You need to get through to the other side of this, because on the other side of this, you are stronger. So get to the other side and take control of your life. Because saving your life is taking control of your life. Whilst everything is uncontrollable, there's one thing you can control, which is saving your own life.
Sink or swim kind of thing.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, powerful. No, I really appreciate it. And on that note, I want to ask you, what is your acts of gratitude for today? What do you feel really grateful for today, based off the conversation we've had, based off the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months? What are you grateful for in this present moment?
I'm grateful for God giving me the courage to help others who might be going through a tough time. And that's the objective of this podcast, is to help people who may relate to some of the things that we're saying. And there will be a lot of people who will not like the things that we say and will hate the things that we say. And guess what? We're not speaking to you.
Oh, but in some instances we are. It's just when they decide for it to sink in.
We're not speaking to you in your current frame of mind. We're speaking to those who are ready, who are open to getting better, to growing, to manifesting more in their life. And I'm grateful to be on the journey to figuring out how to help them more. Because that's what the mission is for Teddy Talks, right?
And even helping ourselves.
And helping ourselves.
Part of the mission
of
as
course.
well.
It's therapeutic.
I mean, this is your gratitude, actually, so I shouldn't even be. So sorry about that.
It's all right. You obviously want to say what you're grateful for.
I'm itching.
So interject now.
No. Well, you finished, though.
I'm finished.
Okay. No, sorry I interjected.
Okay.
That was very rude of me. But I'm going to touch on some of the parts of the quote, actually, which is what I'm also grateful for, is actually being able to have the courage to just go again. Because there's so many instances where I'll be honest, I felt defeated, especially in my younger days, especially, fresh out of changing jobs, changing environments, changing things that are current in my life, where I'm like, why have I done this? Or why have I done that? And at some point, which is to your point earlier on, when you go through that gate, when you go through whatever challenge you are facing at the time, you do see some sort of enlightenment at the other side. I remember Uncle Manuel used to say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's what resonated with me when you said what you said about going through in the moments of challenges. So I'm grateful that I've been given from God, from a higher power, the ability to do that. And it hasn't been easy, but it's made me who I am today. And I hope that many of you out there are listening to this today and you gain the foresight that no matter what you're going through, no matter the challenge, no matter whether or not it feels as though you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, go through the motions, go through the pain, go through the excitement of whatever it is you're going through. It hopefully, I'm no guru, it will be beneficial to your life. Thank you very much for joining us today. Let us know what you are grateful for. Give us any quotes that you live by on a day-to-day basis. Message myself, message Sidney on Instagram. We'll make sure that any port of contact is there on our bio or on the podcast pages. And please do not forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and give us your feedback. Thank you for joining us.